You misspelled white supremacy, but go off. No, Bernie, Democrats lost because the majority of Americans have lost the ability and the interest in telling truth apart from fiction. It's that simple. It's sad because, like, there's so much that is somewhat correct in this assessment.
Bernie Sanders issued a scathing statement after the vice president's loss in what he called a disastrous campaign, saying, quote, "It should come as no great surprise that a Democratic Party which has abandoned working class people would find that the working class has abandoned them." And Independent Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont joins me now. Senator Sanders, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here on this Sunday after Election Day. Let's start right there. Your criticism incredibly direct. You say you think the Democratic Party has, quote, abandoned the working class. How exactly do you think Democrats have abandoned the working class, Senator?
Look, the working people of this country are extremely angry. They have a right to be angry. In the richest country in the history of the world, today, the people on top are doing phenomenally well, while 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, and millions of families worry that their kids are actually going to have a lower standard of living than they do. You got the top 1% owning more wealth than the bottom 90%. We're the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all of our people. 25% of our seniors are trying to live on $15,000 a year or less. We have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. And the gap between the people on top and everybody else is getting wider and wider.
Brown outperformed by 7 points, 15, and he probably would have won. I'm sorry.
And then, Kristen, on top of all of that, we got a corrupt campaign finance system which allows billionaires to buy elections. So if you're an average worker out there, you're saying, hey, I'm working longer and longer hours, going nowhere in a hurry, worried about my kids, and yet the people on top have never had it so good. Where is the Democratic Party? Are they prepared to stand up to these powerful corporate interests, raise the minimum wage, fight for health care for all people, make sure that all of our kids get the quality education that they need, expand Social Security? Are they prepared to do those things? That's the issue that we have to address.
Well, as you know, your statement was met with some sharp reaction as well. This is what Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi had to say. Take a look. I'll get your reaction on the other side.
Bernie Sanders has not won. Let me, with all due respect, and I have a great deal of respect for him, for what he stands for, but I don't respect him saying that the Democratic Party has abandoned the working class families.
Senator, how do you respond to Nancy Pelosi?
Well, Nancy's a friend of mine, and we've worked together on many issues. But here is the reality. I have to say to Nancy, in the Senate in the last 2 years, we have not even brought forth legislation to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, despite the fact that some 20 million people in this country are working for less than $15 an hour. In America today, we have not brought, in the Senate, we have not brought to the floor the PRO Act to make it easier for workers to join unions. We're not talking about defined benefit pension plans so that our elderly can retire with security. We're not talking about lifting the cap on Social Security so that we can extend the solvency of Social Security and raise benefits. Bottom line, if you're an average working person out there, do you really think that the Democratic Party is going to the mats, taking on powerful special interests and fighting for you? I think the overwhelming answer is no, and that is what has got to change.
Senator, let me zoom out and just...
Dude, people are, I'm seeing Lebanon libbing out pretty hard. I used to love you, Bernie, but I'm so disappointed you're validating hate. This is just wrong. Bernie, I love you, but not now. Work on recounts. Democrats lost because they refused to acknowledge Palestine. Okay, that's fair. You can't ignore the country's deep-seated racism and misogyny. Those comments are so out of touch. Agreed. Also, Bernie would have beat Trump in 2016. Okay, that's not bad. How, when Harris spoke of her policies to make the economy better for us and to provide more opportunities for people who purchase homes, etc., we lost because people don't want to see a black woman become president. Like, you are not hearing anything. If that is your analysis of the circumstance, if that's your analysis, you're not hearing anything. Television Man told you $50,000 in tax cuts for small businesses is good, and that's like solid economic policy. So you're like, what do you mean? Everybody said that that was like the best possible thing to say. And I don't understand it. Like, it doesn't make sense. You misspelled white supremacy, but go off. No, Brady, Democrats lost because the majority of Americans have lost the ability and the interest in telling truth apart from fiction. It's that simple. It's sad because, like, there's so much that is somewhat correct in this assessment, but that's just the table, you know? You can't demand to play a different board game when you're playing Monopoly, okay? You can't be like, well, I think we should play as though we're playing Risk. No, man, you're playing Monopoly. Play by the rules, you know? The reality of the matter is everyone that says racism and misogyny is a factor in this, or white supremacy is a factor in this, yeah, they're not wrong. Of course it is a factor in this. That's America. But Trump doesn't play by the rules. That's a fantastic point that you just made. Exactly. Trump never, on the other hand, complains, though, in the sense that, like, his complaints are always echoing the resentment that, like, average Americans feel, even if it's on his own personal key issues. He has a perfect way of tying that back to his own audience. Like, and be like, I mean, he channels that they're not coming after me. They're coming after you. I'm just in the way. Every single argument that he makes is basically that. I've never seen somebody like Donald Trump, a zesty ass, ace, biromantic, you know, queer visibility candidate, a liberal his whole life, a billionaire real estate developer, shits on a golden toilet, lives in an ivory tower, born with a silver spoon, going to, you know, the Rust Belt and complaining about sissy Graydon Carter and his Vanity Fair parties, and have people go, hell yes, sir, you're right. Everything that he complains about, people think he's like shitting on the liberal elite. I feel like if Kamala Harris ran and was like consistently talking about how racist and white supremacist America was, that would be objectively depressing for her own turnout.
Ask you about these results. You've heard some of the reaction throughout the Democratic Party.
My VODs are readily available on YouTube.
How much do you personally blame President Biden for this loss?
President Biden, when he came into office, said that he would be the most progressive president since FDR. And I think on domestic issues, not foreign policy, on domestic issues, he has kept his word. The agenda that he has pushed through has been an extraordinarily strong one. But that agenda has got to be placed within the overall context of American society today. And that American society today is one in which tens of millions of working families and elderly people are struggling, while the people on top have never had it so good.
But, Senator, should he have gotten out of the race more quickly, as some are arguing?
I'm not going to. I supported him because I think his agenda was a strong agenda, a working class agenda. I'm not going to look backwards. Kamala ran a strong campaign. She did everything that she could. She decisively won the debate. So to me, it's not just about the campaign. It's about what does the Democratic Party stand for? Do ordinary people say, yeah, that is a party that is fighting for my interest and prepared to take on the big money interest who control the economic and political life of the country? That's to me what the issue is.
Yeah, we're talking a lot about the economics. You've talked about how the Democratic Party is out of touch when it comes to economic issues. Some Democrats are saying it's not just economic issues, it's cultural issues as well. Here's what Democratic strategist James Carville had to say. Take a look.
What killed the Democrats and what killed Biden was a sense of disorder. And part of the sense of disorder was the unfortunate events of what I would refer to as the woke era.
Has the Democratic Party's focus on identity politics gone too far, Senator?
Let me answer it this way. I think if the Democratic Party must continue to stand up against all forms of bigotry. And Democrats should hold their head high in saying, we led the fight for women's rights and to protect the woman's constitutional right for abortion. We led the fight for civil rights, for gay rights. That is something we should be proud of. But it's not either or, Chris, and this is the problem. You can do both. You could say that I'm for raising.
I take it one step further. I say one can only happen with the other. Because if you don't win elections, you can't do legislation that protects marginalized communities. And if you want to win elections, you have to have a populist left economic message. You can be uncompromising in your values while simultaneously asking people, does this put food on your table or not? A question I keep repeating to people that come to me on a daily basis about trans rights is always this. Let's say you forcibly reversed the HRT and gender surgeries of every single trans person in America. Does that immediately or even in the future improve your material conditions? Does that put more food on your table? Does that make your shelter more secure? Does that lower the price of rent? Does that actually help you in any meaningful way? It's not going to lower the price of eggs. Someone has told you that you should focus on this. And in a sea of hate, you decided, yeah, trans people are weird. I actually think that's a right thing to focus on. And the other side of this, in terms of like constantly doing hyper-specific messaging to different identity groups within the base that we understand it of the Democratic Party is also silly. Because it's not like trans people exist in a separate plane of existence. Like they still have the rent. You think trans people are not going to benefit from universal health care? You think trans people are not going to benefit from lowering the cost of housing? Yeah, of course they're going to benefit. Same with black people. Same with Latino people. This is why left economic populism is very successful. You fight the battles that you have to fight to defend trans people while you simultaneously offer everyone something that gets them on board. You say Medicare for all means for all. It means for you and it means for trans people too. There's no world where we're like, nah, we're going to gut this.
Raising the minimum wage to a living wage, guarantee health care for all people, expanding Social Security. And by the way, I also support a woman's right to control her own body, etc. It's not either or. It's going forward in both directions.
You know, I've been speaking to some Democrats who are concerned because now President-elect Trump has beaten 2 women candidates, and their concern is that it will make it more difficult to nominate a woman candidate in the future. Do you share that concern, Senator?
No, I don't. I think it's not a question. Look, I'm not going to deny that there is sexism in this country, that there's racism, there's homophobia. It's there. But on the other hand, I think what the American people want to support, whether it's a woman, a man, a black or a white or Latino, whatever, is they want to support somebody who is standing up, Kristen, and fighting for them. People are in pain. People are hurting. They can't afford to go to a doctor. They can't afford to send their kids to childcare or to college. They're worried about future generations and what kind of standard of living they will have. Here is the bottom line, and it has to be dealt with. You got an economy today doing phenomenally well for the people on top. It is not working for the working class. All right? How do we address those issues? And in the richest country on the history of the world, create an economy that works for all. That is the issue. And by the way, what Trump did in his election is to say, I know that you're hurting. And the reason is they got millions of people coming across the border illegal. They're eating your dogs. They're eating your cats. He gave an explanation. It happened to be a pretty crazy explanation. Yes, we got to strengthen the borders, but that is not going to raise wages for working people or provide health care to all people. The Democrats need an explanation. And that explanation is corporate greed and the power of the billionaire class. I know that's uncomfortable for people in the Democratic Party, some people, but that is the issue we have to address.